Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at how do we do this? How do we do this? I don't know how to point at it, you guys. There we go. Jacinho tweets. There you go. I will get that right next time. Just trying to have a little bit of fun, lighten the mood, you guys, because I feel like this player ratings is going to be dismal. We are in despair. The fan base has definitely capitulated. And no surprise, no shock, really, because let's keep it real. We haven't won a game in January. And even though we've played across 3 different competitions, we have to be honest and say that we've been horrible during this run, and it comes after such a high time in December. In December, Arteta was nominated, I think, for Manager of the Month. We scored like 20 goals. Like we were really on it, not giving away a lot of goals. We were just on it, and to go into January, go out of 2 cups really pathetically, if we're honest, give away 3 red cards, score 1 goal, and our highlight of the month is a good half against Manchester City, leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. And I, for one, am welcoming this 17-day break away from Arsenal Football Club because as much as I love the club, I woke up this morning with a pit in my stomach and I did not feel confident. And against Burnley at home, I should feel like we're going to come away with the 3 points. And I had predicted like a 2-0 win yesterday. This morning, I was like, no, I think we'll probably draw the game because we just haven't found a solution for how we're going to win games and win games, period, without our starting midfield pair. And it's unfortunate, but our starting midfield pair have been the least reliable players the entire season. And we pretty much banked our season on those two being available and playing well for the entire season. And it has backfired on us massively. If you think of how we could have performed in certain games had we had just one more experienced midfielder in there, even maybe Ainsley Maitland-Niles, because let's not forget, we beat Watford with Sambi and Maitland-Niles in midfield. They're a relegation fodder team as well. And they played just fine against them. And Maitland-Niles had almost like a man of the match performance. Sambi was really good. And we loan out Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Thomas Partey and Xhaka exchanged times of wanting to be stupid out there on the pitch. And now we're shocked that we can't win a game. And so I just want to ask who is to blame here, because there's a lot of it's Adu because, the technical director didn't set us up for success. I do think that there's a percentage of blame that needs to be laid at the feet of Adu. But then it's also Arteta and his inflexibility when it comes to not having his best 11. I understand that Lacazette missed a wide open chance, but we always look at the one wide open chance that we had that we didn't put away. But what about the 45 minutes before that, the 60 minutes before that, where we couldn't muster a chance, when we were passing slowly, horseshoe style, crossing balls into the box aimlessly, and completely bypassing our midfield? In the second half, Odegaard barely touched the ball. Like, Smith Rowe barely got into the game until the 20 minutes before he got taken out. Like, there has to be some sort of way of winning games and adapting when you don't have your best 11. And so I understand that there wasn't much we could have done off the bench. But when we started the match, you had to have been at least a little bit confident that we would have been able to sustain more pressure and put Burnley under more threat than what we did today. And sadly, we were unable to do so. And I think there's shared blame across the board. And knowing that we could have been in fourth, after winning a game at home against the team that's in last place, hasn't won a game and who knows how long and hasn't played in 2 weeks, now sitting in sixth. And I mean, Chelsea probably should have been ahead in the match, and it doesn't look like they are. So we know what that means. Spurs might win. So going into a 17-day break in 7th place after not winning a single game in January is not good. And so, again, I welcome the break, but huge questions need to be asked, because we'll look back at this Burnley match just like we look back at Brentford and we look back at Everton and wish we would have gotten those points. And was there a way that we could have beaten a beat down Everton team, without our best 11. Yeah, probably. I think it was damn near our best 11 and we just played like shit. And even today, beat down Burnley team, couldn't get the points. And I'm just glad we didn't lose. It was set up for them to win 1-0. We were doing everything in our power to give them the 3 points, but we came out with a point and it feels shitty. And so, yeah, that's my little rant. We'll go into player ratings, but I'm telling you right now, it's going to be not good because unlike the Liverpool game, and the Man City game, we dropped points today, but I cannot say that I felt like beyond Saka in the first half and Odegaard in the first half, there are a lot of players that just played like shit today. And that's just on period, okay? There's about 50 of you guys watching. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to bring Souls in. Hey, Souls.
Hey, Jess, how you doing?
What up? So, here we are. 0-0. Didn't play well. Are you shocked? I think you were pretty confident yesterday, but I mean, most Gooners were confident. I mean, it's Burnley at home. They haven't played a game in who knows how long, but not having our starting midfield combo of Xhaka and Partey seems to be somewhat of a bugbear for us. It seems like we can't beat anybody without those two. It doesn't matter how low down the team is, we cannot do it. Are you shocked? What did you think throughout the game? Were you just kind of like, wow, we're doing it again? Or were you shocked at how poor we were?
I was shocked. I'm not going to sit here and lie about it because when you look at the way we've played, especially recently, in terms of the quick, fluid transitions that we've had, you'd expect a bit more of that, or at least more of it than we've seen. We've seen it in like maybe out of that entire game, about 5 minutes of us doing that in total. And I remember kind of just throwing a hypothetical and a hypothesis out there whether, you know, the reason why we find it so hard to replace Granit Xhaka is because his influence on the team and to sustain a 90-minute performance is what we're finding difficult to replace, not his ability or to upgrade on his ability, but more of can we find someone who's better but has the same level of influence or who can bring that influence to this team? And so far, to be fair, the hypothesis is Jacques is vital to this team to keep it performing for a 90-minute game. Every single time Jacques is out of this team, we don't look the same. And yes, he himself is stupid. He can be a clown. He has those, moments in him. If he hadn't had them, I think we would be top four, and I think we could be competing a lot higher up in the sort of the table. But it's his mentality that lets us down as well. I'm I'm disappointed, should I say, because I expected a bit more from the team in terms of I think it was that Lacazette shot that he missed when we first did it, where ESR was linking up with Odegaard. We played it through to Saka. Saka played it in, and it was just one touch football. And then all of a sudden, we've never seen it in the game again. And that's I think the disappointing thing is as soon as we find a way to break a team down, we never do the same thing again. And it's like, why? It worked. Why are we not doing it again? And for me, it's hard because we've heard Arteta say multiple times this season, I'm not telling them to sit off. I'm telling them to go forward, to play the ball forward. And every opportunity the players had, they played it backwards. So I don't know. I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed because I expected more.
I just keep checking my phone and I seen like Spurs should
That
have
should
also
have
got
been
a
a red
red
card.
card.
They should have,
And
yeah.
so we know they're going to win this game. So at Arsenal have pissed me off so much that I'm not going to watch any more football for the rest of the day. And I always continue to watch. Like I can't bear to watch Spurs win again. Like it's just terrible. I'm going to bring Harry in. Hey Harry, how's it going?
Hey, hey, hey,
Oh, hey. So,
hey.
yeah, how was it there at the Emirates? Watching us struggle to beat the 20th place team in the league. Were you shocked at how difficult it was for us to just sustain pressure against this team, or were you kind of anticipating a more difficult match?
Yeah, I kind of knew it would be a tough game. I think take everything aside in terms of Burnley not playing in 2 or 3 weeks and missing key players. I think if you know anything about Arsenal against Burnley, it's never really a plain sailing game, or it doesn't feel like it is. And in all honesty, Burnley sat deep. They frustrated us. They time wasted. They gave away lots of fouls, and they made it hard for us. And so, to be honest, I'm not surprised. I'm obviously really disappointed and dejected, but I'm not surprised at all. I thought today's game would have been a 1-0 at best. And if Lacazette scores that chance, then it is that 1-0 game. But I always had a feeling we'd struggle today. I think, psychology in sports is huge. And the narrative around this game was that our rivals have won, luckily, recently. We haven't won a few games recently. We're playing at home against Burnley, but we're not at full strength. And all these things contribute to a nervous and like just average performance. And that's what the players gave us, really. I didn't think we were terrible, I must say. I didn't think we were awful. I just don't think we had enough about us to create a lot of chances. But in the same respect, if Lacazette takes that chance, it's a solid 1-0 win, just like what Man United got at home against West Ham the other day. Just how Spurs got a Watford away. So it's real fine margins. And then obviously when it doesn't go our way, we then want to make, these conclusions about the manager and the players and whatnot. But ultimately, yeah, disappointing. And I just hope that we go into this international break with some signings in mind, because it's clear now that if we are 1 or 2 players down, we just can't do it. We just can't do it. And that's quite worrying, because Xhaka has another red card in him for sure. Thomas Partey has another injury in him for sure. Lacazette can't finish. That's evident. So what do we do? What do we do? We can't just rely on Martinelli and Saka and Emil Smith-Rowe to score every game.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that, Arteta comes out after the match and starts talking about what a difficult window the January window is. We just a couple of weeks ago, it was, we're going to do something, we're going to make things happen. And the only thing we've seen happen is them get rid of more players without bringing players in. And I always go back to, it sat with me when they, Edu came out and said that Xhaka and Thomas are the starters. And if you're pinning your entire season on them, you've made a grave mistake, because Thomas has not been available for maybe 60% of his Arsenal career. And then you could say that for the other 40%, he's been underwhelming, And then when you look at Xhaka, we would have never anticipated that he could have gotten that injury, but he did. But he's also been unavailable through other reasons, mostly his own stupidity. So you banked your entire season on these two. And I'm not, as much as Sambi's been frustrating me, I have to be honest that I need to take a step back, because Sambi is a kid coming from the Belgian league. He should not be made to carry, Arsenal's midfield in this time. There should have always been a competent, if not really good, fighting for Xhaka and Thomas Partey's spot midfielder available to us in this time. And there wasn't. The other midfielder that we have that people like to call on is Elneny, and he was gone at the African Cup of Nations. We are not prepared to sustain a charge for the European qualification spots, as far as I'm concerned, because if all it takes is for 2 players to be out, and granted, they're huge players in our team, but if we're not prepared, I mean, what are we doing here? And I just see a lack of preparation, but also an inability to adapt from the manager when we don't have our starting group. And that is very, very, very apparent to me, because it happens. That's the story of all our cups, isn't it? Is once we start rotating, we start losing games.
Yeah, we're trying to get by. We've taken a risk in thinking, oh well, look, let's loan out, make the Niles, knowing that, and then it's gone. Obviously, we didn't envisage a Xhaka red card, but essentially, we've taken a risk. And Arteta's probably looked at the fixtures and thought, okay, Burnley at home, yeah, we should be able to get by, and it hasn't paid off. And the 4-1-4-1 hasn't worked, and it continues not to work. And And now we are, and the annoying thing is, we're actually over the hump now because we'll come back from the international break with Partey back, with Xhaka back. So they probably won't go into the window. The time to do it would have been right at the start, or to keep Maitland-Niles. I'm not the biggest fan of Maitland-Niles at all, but letting him go on loan is obviously a ridiculously stupid decision.
Could you have let him go now? Could you have given him to Roma now? I mean, that's the reality. Is like, I was telling Souls this before. We beat Watford with Ainsley Maitland-Niles and Sambi in midfield, and this is a worse team than Watford. So we know we need a double pivot, right? We know that that's pretty much what it is we need two defensive central midfielders there so that Odegaard can play with his, because taking Odegaard from the 10 starves us of that creativity, because for me, ESR did fuck all until he did that run. I mean, he really wasn't doing anything for me.
I think the bigger issue is if you asked me at the start of the season, would I have let Ainsley Maitland-Niles go? I probably would have said yes. But looking at his form this season, and especially in midfield, I think he's come in and done a job. And I think that's what frustrates us more, especially when we look at the way that Ainsley can come in, and not to the level of maybe what Granit Xhaka can offer, but he can do that Xhaka role. And then when you look at Lokonga, he's clearly been brought in to be the Thomas Partey second. And that's your perfect two profiles to bring in if those two are missing. And then you can allow Odegaard to play where he's been phenomenal, which is in the number 10. But what's happening is Odegaard's having to take on way more responsibilities in a defensive position. Because if you looked at him today, if you look at him against Liverpool, even when you look at him in any of the games where we played this three, he's been the one intercepting the balls, tackling the balls, coming back, and then having to drive the ball forward. He's been doing way too much, to the point where it doesn't matter how creative he is, because he's having to do that on the halfway line. And on top of that, ESR, unfortunately, I've said it again, this isn't a vital game for ESR to come in and prove to everyone that he's fighting for that spot. And at the moment, I'm not starting him, because he's done nothing to redeem himself and say, you know what, I'm taking Martinelli out of this team. So it's disappointing, but we do have to be patient, and there's an element of patience, but also this club needs to make a move. I can't believe
it's too late now, though, Souls. I don't think that's the thing now. I don't think we do need to make the move. I think that moment's passed. We're now going
but Jack
into
is still due a red card. Thomas Partey can still be in. There's still a need.
I agree, but then El Neni might be there as well. So this is the thing. I think the time to do it was January the 1st, as soon as the window was available, and we've obviously hesitated around Arthur and whatever's going on, and we've decided that it's not a deal worth making. And obviously in the back or behind the scenes, it might be a case that Maitland-Niles, we're saying let's keep Maitland-Niles. For all we know, Maitland-Niles might have literally said, look, get me out of here, I want to go. And then Arteta goes, do you know what? Okay, I'll get you out of here. It's your time to move on. So it could be a case where he was just fed up of sitting around and waiting to play, one game every few weeks.
It's the second time we've done this. Last season with Kolasinac, the first day of the window, we got him out and we didn't bring a left back in the entire window. And that's the frustrating thing. It seems to be, we're doing the outgoing, getting rid of deadwood, but that's not what we need. We need the players right now. The deadwood that we did get rid of, fair enough. We didn't really need them. But now we've literally depleted the squad.
Edu, doing the job that he should have done in the summer, now in the January window, doesn't do anything for me, because there should have been more outgoings in the summer. We didn't get them. Now he's doing them now. It's late now, and you've gotten rid of one particular player that you probably could have held on to for a couple more weeks to keep us above water in this time. And it just feels like Edu is under review. He's always been under review for me, and although he did well buying the players that he did in the summer, and Arteta is a part of that as well, we know that he's a big part of transfers. We are lucky that we only dropped 2 points in January. We are lucky because the Man City game, we played well, and that wasn't because we didn't have the players. It was because they were just stupid and they let the game go. And Man City was never a game that we were counting on to win or whatever. We are so lucky we haven't played more games in the league in this period. We are.
Yeah.
Because we only gave up two points. Because we're still going to be within shooting range. But this is where we get into that point of the season where we start talking about we're only 2 points away. We're only 4 points away. We're only 6 points away. If we could win, this was our first. If we could win this, we'd be in the fourth. This is our first one. And every season, especially under Arteta, since he's been here, it's been we get to a point where we fall behind, and then it's a constant catch up because we, as soon as we let the teams get in front of us, they put us in a chokehold and we can't get out of it. So at this point, I'm not feeling great, but it could also just be because it's right after the game and, the fury is raging and all that kind of stuff. But let's talk about some individual player performances. Let's start off with Ramsdale. He hasn't recovered since Man City. And I group him right in there with Gabriel. They've both been ass, really, for me, since Man City. Shake it off. Shake it off. Get over it. The confidence is definitely not there for either of them. But with Ramsdale in particular, goalkeeper is very much so a confidence position. You need to be confident to come out of the box, claim crosses and stuff like that. And we've been weaker on crosses into the box in the last 2 games than I've seen all season. He's not coming out and claiming them. He's flailing, and it's worrying. He needs to get his life together because without him, we're not as good. He's been one of our best players this season, and I thought today he was suspect on coming out for those crosses. Now, he did have some good moments coming out of his box and cleaning up messes because we were exposed at the back quite a few times. The high line hasn't been as good and as secure as it has been the entire season. So I do think he did a good job with that. He had a good save, but he's not doing very well, and he didn't do well today. So I'm going to give him a 6. Not as bad as he played against Liverpool the other day, but definitely not as good as I thought he should have played. Souls?
You're way too generous. I'm giving him a 3. I thought he was... The thing is, twice he fumbled the ball from a corner, and there was a few opportunities where he just looked shaky, and his distribution wasn't on today either. The problem with him is I think he's frustrated, and that's the problem. He's playing with emotions, and that for me is the biggest issue with him right now. He seems frustrated. Everything that goes against us, he gets angry, rather than before where he'd have a stern word, but it was like a different way. It wasn't anger. It was more of a, come on, man, it's passion. But now it seems to be anger. And, we all know, even in any situation in life, when we do anything with anger, it's usually we start to make a few mistakes. And for me, I'm going to have to, because this is now the 3rd consecutive game where I've been absolutely appalled by him. And I'm going to give him a 3 because I just thought for the standards that we keep him at, it was way below average for me. And I hope it's just one of those phases that, a new signing, because he is a new signing and, he's got that adaptation to the team rather than the league. But I hope it's just one of those performances where we look back at, and it's one of those where he looks back at and goes, you know what, I need to move on from it.
Can I just say one thing, though? I do feel like there is a little bit of an element of the fun has worn off and it's business. And some of the players that were on a high now need to get real. Being at Arsenal is fucking hard. Excuse my language. It's difficult. Nothing ever goes your way. You have to work twice as hard to win games. We don't get lucky. Honestly, Burnley should have been down a man in probably the first 10 minutes. Nothing happens. And so Ramsdale, I know that the good times are over. You need to get it together. Gabriel, good times are over. Time to get it together. It's the business part of the season, but it also doesn't help that your senior players are not available to you when it's business time of the season. Harry, what's your rating for Ramsdale?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably go with a 5. I think obviously the floppy hands were there to see a few times from crosses. That was disappointing for me. But the most disappointing thing for me today was his hesitancy in his distribution. His distribution was off, but there was also times when he just held on it for too long. We're doing this thing where we get Gabriel to take the goal kick to then give it to Ramsdale, but then Ramsdale waits too long. There's a few times when he could have just played it to Sambi to play out from the back, and he didn't. And then there's a lot of times when he gets the ball, and then there's a stud roll, there's a stud roll, there's a stud roll, and then there's his, he makes his choice. So I think there's a little bit of arrogance in his play sometimes, which he needs to sneak out, which he needs to take out. But I'd say a 5. I mean, yeah, he needs to improve a little bit. And don't get me wrong, the fun side of Aaron Ramsdale is quite endearing as a fan. When he turns to the away fans and gives it a bit of banter back, that's great. And when he talks about it online, it's great. But like you say, we're now crunch time, right? And we need these players to focus and to step up and to be consistent. And recently, Ramsdale, yeah, he has dropped his level. So I'll say a 5 out of 10.
Yeah. And the Sambi conversation is really interesting because I just feel like, and we'll probably talk about this more when we get to Sambi in particular, but if you look at the past maps and you were looking with your own 2 eyeballs, you could tell that we were avoiding that boy like the plague. And I don't know if I can't imagine that it's instructed. I don't think Arteta goes to the defenders and say, just bypass Sambi, because I just don't feel like if you have to bypass them and you don't feel comfortable with them being out there, you shouldn't be playing them, to be honest. You don't want them touching the ball, so I don't think Arteta's saying bypass Sambi, because he's not good enough. But I think there's a collective reluctance to rely upon Sambi and play him in areas where we would play in party, because there was, as I kind of talked about in the preview, that box of the 2 strikers and the 2 midfielders boxing him in. And based on what happened against Crystal Palace and also what happened against Nottingham Forest, there may be a little bit of that team. I don't want to play him in those positions. I'm scared to play him in those positions. So, and when Sambi gets the ball in those positions, I can't say that I feel filled with confidence either, So, but
I think Granit Xhaka made the error last year, didn't he, against Burnley? Was it against Burnley?
Yeah,
it was.
So maybe there's a bit of that in their mind that we know Burnley will press us if we do go central to the deepest midfielder. But yeah, I mean, we'll go on to Sambi later because I think he's probably the most important player to talk about today.
Well, yeah, and S says Sambi was hiding, and it's both, right? It's they don't feel comfortable playing it to him, and he's also not showing his feet. There were several times on throw-ins I saw, and times that we were that we would pass to like that's where we would pass to Party, and he would evade pressure and get us out of danger. But Sambi was behind his player, so again, like if he's scared and we're not willing to pass to him, we should have a midfielder available to us as Arsenal Football Club that can do that for us, and we don't. So Sambi is somebody that I feel like was never meant to play this amount of games and is playing a lot more in
not on his own
situations.
Yeah, not on his own in the middle of the pitch. And, especially when you are going 4-1, 4-1. That's the frustrating thing for me today, that we didn't play Odegaard closer to him. We just still left him on his own for the whole game. And I couldn't understand why. I was just thinking, just get Erdie closer to him, and then you'll probably see more of Emil Smith-Rowe. But instead, they were either side of Sambi, but too far away from him to link up play. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll go on to Sambi later.
Yeah. It was a difficult one. But let's talk about Ben. I thought it was a strange decision to play Holding instead of Chambers. I don't know how fit Chambers was, but I think he was on the bench. And I just have this thing about bringing Ben White out of central defense puts the onus on Rob Holding to be the person dictating play from the back line. And between him and Gabriel, there's just not enough technical quality or vision or anything to make things happen. Now, again, Sambi was hiding. So there you go. But I thought Ben White did probably as good as he could do playing out of position. He wasn't amazing, but he also wasn't terrible. But you lose so much with him not being as the center back and him being right back. Because if you think Tommy is stiff and can't go forward, what do you think Ben White is? So I think Ben White was just okay. He's another one for me that's been consistent. We may not be getting the results, but I still think he's one of our better players. And there's a reason why Arteta decides to play him out of position, then bring in he wants to just keep him on the pitch no matter what. And I think he just relies upon Ben White to do everything. I think Ben White is becoming, if I'm going to move, I'd rather move Ben White out of his position, because I trust him more than bringing on Chambers, so, oh gosh, Spurs scored. Wow.
He's going to get ruled out. Kane pushed Thiago Silva.
Okay, well, hopefully. Ben White was fine. I'll give him a 6. No, actually, I'm sorry. I'll give him a 7. No, give him a 6. Actually, no, let me redo my thing. I'm going to give Ramsdale a 5 and then give Ben White a 6. That's what I'll give him. That feels more real. Harry?
Yeah, I'd say the same. I'd say a 6 out of 10. I think, in all honesty, I would have previously said, like, I'm okay with Holding and Gabriel at the back, but once you see what Ben White offers you at the back, then you realise how important it is. And that's certainly a case of me. I've been a big fan of Rob Holding and saying that he can come in there and do a job. But yeah, he'll come in and do a job, but he obviously won't give you what Ben White gives you. So, I hope that Chambers just wasn't fully fit, because I think that was a more of an obvious choice. Obviously, if Cedric was fit, then Cedric, you assume, would have played right back, and you could have put Ben White in the middle. So yeah, like you say, Ben White doesn't give you that fluency in terms of an attacking right back and overlapping and whatnot. But he did okay. He did okay. The few times he could have used the ball a little bit better. But like you say, when you don't have a central midfielder who's showing inside, all you've got is down the line to Saka, and that felt like a little bit repetitive. So yeah, I'd say a 6 out of 10.
By the way, the goal was ruled out, so still 0-0.
I still think Spurs are going to go on to win that game. It's just it's poetic the way that we lose, they win. Chelsea they beat them twice on the bounce. They will get it this time. Like, it's done. Like, whatever. We're so shit.
Hate it all. I hate it all.
Yeah, I do too. I'm so done with Arsenal Football Club. Souls, what's your rating for Benjamin?
I thought he was quite comfortable. Personally, I just think he did what he needed to do. Personally, I would have liked to see maybe just go wild and just bring Tavares on and make something happen. That's what I was hoping. I can understand starting Ben White, but then when you can see that we're so lethargic, there's nothing happening. I mean, we're going into a break. What are you resting him for? Dubai?
Arteta is reluctant. I mean, we didn't. If you notice that the way that we played today, it looked like we don't expel too much energy, because I don't want anybody to get hurt. There wasn't a lot of energy. There wasn't any pressing. We weren't really going into tackles hard. We were very much on the periphery of that game. And I think his decisions off the bench and lack of decisions off the bench also spoke to his lack of going after it. That's another thing he hasn't figured out, is when we're not winning, make changes to freaking win the game. And Tavares holding out, White in center back would probably change the game and get an overlapping right back out there to help Saka.
We've seen it a few times, right, when he's even played Saka right wing back, or he's actually played Saka right back. We have seen it in a few games where he's done these random things. I assume that in this case, there just weren't any options, even though we say there was Chambers on right back. Apart from that, maybe there was a case of there just wasn't anyone else to bring on, or they didn't feel comfortable bringing anyone else on. But then there you go. It's 0-0. You've even got some young Highland boys. Just why not throw them on? This is what I don't understand. Why not give them a chance? We've seen
17 days.
We've seen so many players come off the bench and score a random goal. Go back to Makeda at Man United, or Freddie Sears at West Ham. You go back to all these days, and you never hear of these kids again. But they come on, they grab a moment, and they do something, and it's great. So sometimes it feels like we play a little bit safe. But to contradict myself, in the final 5 minutes of that game, there was a few Burnley breakaways, right, where you're thinking, Jesus Christ, what's going to go on here? It could be a smash and grab. Nothing happened. So obviously, maybe he didn't want to completely go gung-ho, because he knows that there's still vulnerabilities in our team where he can concede a late goal. But it felt like we needed something. Just do something. Amari Hutchinson is a confident young player in good form. Why not bring him on? Why not put Martinelli inside instead of bringing Nketiah on? Why not try something different?
The Nketiah decision was
wild.
Kieran Tierney at left back, he had an okay game, but there was nothing really going for him. Why not try Tavares? Just do something. But yeah, I think that is a fair criticism of Arteta, that he doesn't go for broke, and he doesn't seem to understand that, when we're in those final moments of the game, if I make a really, really bold substitution, I can spark a reaction. But instead, it just felt the same.
Other managers do that, and sometimes they're rewarded. I think we've been rarely rewarded by not doing what Arteta is doing now. Like we've rarely been rewarded by sticking with what we're doing, and then eventually we get the breakthrough. We were never going to score a goal in that game. I just never
He
felt
did it
it.
at Palace when we done 2. I know it's 2-2 and it's a draw, but I remember being 2-1 down, and then he brings Lacazette on to
Yeah,
bring a
but
4-4-2,
that's
and that was
what I'm
proactive.
saying. Like we've never been rewarded by just sticking with the safe, so don't be safe. And like, I get that you're afraid something's going to happen on the other end, but like, if he's going to be like this, like, you can't be Arsenal Football Club's manager and be scared. Like, you can't. You have to be bold. Like, you have to be able to make decisions and stand by them. And I think often he let the game passes him by, and he makes strange substitutions. And a lot of times his decision is Eddie, and he ain't it. Like, he ain't it.
Yes, is that the fear of failure? Is that the fear of losing? The fear of pressure? He knows if he maybe takes a risk and it doesn't pay off, there's not going to be any hindsight in place. There won't be journalists saying, "Well, Arteta took a gamble. It didn't pay off, but fair play to Arteta." It will be Arteta out. It will be fans booing. It will be hostility around the whole club again and again.
He won't make a bold one unless we're losing. If we are drawing the game, he will not make the change because he'd rather draw than take a risk and try to win and then lose. That is how Arteta calculates things. We were drawing the game. He felt comfortable. So he was like, at least we didn't lose. When we were losing against Crystal Palace, he made a bold choice and brought in Lacazette. So it's kind of like, he ain't bold unless if we're in drawing, to me, is a loss. Like, it is. So like, I think that's how he rationalizes it, which I understand, but like, you got to be bold, Arteta. Like, you can't wait until you have a Manchester City level team and then start taking risks. You're not going to have it at Arsenal. We need it now. So it's interesting, but let's go to the center backs. Rob Holding, and I think we could do Rob Holding and Gabriel together. I don't think they had much to do, but they just weren't amazing on the ball. And that's just what you get when you have when somebody plays a low block, like Burnley did earlier on in the season against us. We just stand on the ball with our foot on top of it and pass back and forth. And Holding and Gabriel did a shit ton. Oh, sorry, excuse my language. They did a lot of that today, and so I could just give them both a 5. I thought they were both just freaking average. Didn't have much to do. Didn't do anything special. Didn't give up a goal, probably could have, so there you go. Are you guys okay with giving them both 5s, or do you think something a little bit different?
No, 5. I think the hesitancy
in 4.
Oh, go on, Sauce.
Yeah, the reason being, I just thought that distribution didn't help either. I think they didn't really do anything. Holding drove the ball and then as soon as he hit a player, just didn't go past him or try to go past him. And I felt the hesitant. And then it was like, oh, and it was like every time he was like, where's Ben White? Like, and he was constantly looking for White rather than, okay, Saka's there. Let me try and make a forward pass. And I thought that's what disappointed me today. And to be fair, like, even with Gabriel, I don't know what's going on with his distribution as well. Like, at the beginning of the season, or when he first started coming back into the team after his injury, one of the biggest praises was his distribution has massively improved, but it's gone back to the Gabriel of last season in terms of we don't trust him on the ball. Whereas with earlier this season, we were like, actually, I don't mind him being a ball-playing centre-back. He seems to be a bit more comfortable. So it's this. I just found it to be disappointing.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think the hesitancy in distribution, obviously comes down to not having Xhaka and Partey there. There's so many times when Gabriel gets the ball, and usually his first pass is like a little 5-yard side pass to Xhaka, who will then play Kieran Tierney. Today, Gabriel had to go and find Kieran Tierney. And whilst he can do it, I don't think he can do it consistently. And there was an interesting interview recently. I think it was either from Tomiyasu or Ben White, explaining that, the pass from the centre back to the right back is maybe the last pass you want to make because it puts them under pressure. But today, you know, Rob Holding's comfort blanket was a pass to Ben White because, you know, it was easy for him to have the ball and give it to Ben White because he knew Ben White could do something better with it. So, yeah, I mean, I think they were both average in possession, but I also put that down to not having players available. They won most of their defensive duels, but you know, but the hesitancy on the ball was almost contagious. And once you wait too long and you play it to Sambi and you wait too long to play it to Sambi, he has less options, and it kind of just goes on and on and on. So I would have loved for them just to have played a little bit quicker and a little bit sharper, but they were just flat, to be honest. So yeah, a 5 out of 10. But even a 5 feels quite generous, you know, because they had nothing to do. Their job was to start attacks and get us playing, and they didn't really do it.
Yeah, because in games like today, they're kind of like orchestrating from the back, and
yeah,
like Sol's already said, Gabriel has gotten a lot better with his distribution from the back, but it's mostly been very like balls in between the lines to Lacazette, or passing the ball to Thomas Partey and Xhaka, or finding that little chip ball over the top to Martinelli. He wasn't doing any of that. The one thing that he was doing was the crossfield ball to Saka. He started doing that one, and that was good. But overall, he just, for me, has fallen off massively since his red card. And he needs to shake it off now because we need him. We ain't got nobody else. Pablo Maria is gone. We ain't got nobody else. So you're it. So you need to do it. Like, seriously. Like, somebody needs to just, you know, and say, like, come on, you're good. All right. So Tierney, I could tell like the Emirates was getting frustrated with him because he kept passing the ball backwards. I could feel it. He just had one of those Tierney games where it was like, I think you just need a break. You know, you're running out of ideas, you're spamming crosses. And one thing I was getting frustrated with is like, are we not smart enough to understand that we don't have anybody to head the ball in? Like, kick it low and hard on the ground and give us at least an opportunity for them to kick it in the back of their own net.
Yeah,
they were eating them crosses up. Yeah, go ahead.
Crosses. Yeah, those chipped crosses from Kieran Tierney were annoying. I mean, you can look at it in two ways. Yes, he's finding himself in those positions, so we were actually working the ball to get him on the overlap. But yeah, the final ball was flat. I agree with you. I think he looks a little bit tired. There's a predictability about Kieran Tierney's attacking game, right? It's pause with the ball, one quick touch or one extra long touch, and then get a cross in. So it's quite easy for defenders to read. But in the same token, it is quite effective for Tierney. But when you catch Tierney on a subdued day, you just don't get the same energy or tenacity. And I said the same after the Liverpool game, and I felt the same today. You know, after 60, 70 minutes of trying to break them down on the left-hand side, I just think just chuck Tavares on. And how many times did we see Kieran Tierney get the ball? And because there were no real options, he had to come in on his right foot. But because he hasn't got a right foot, he didn't have to pay it back. But the good thing about Tavares is that he can use his right foot. So there would have been a time when Tavares could then wander into the middle and try and start something. But Kieran Tierney, he huffed and he puffed and he didn't really do anything with it of real measure. So yeah, it feels harsh, but I'd probably say a 5 because he had opportunities to put in some really good crosses and he didn't. And I don't know why we were doing this, going to the bar line and then just wedging a cross in. Ben Mee and however you pronounce his name are literally heads. They are heads. All they want to do is head the ball. They love to head the ball. They will head the ball all day long. And that's what we were doing. So it was really, really annoying.
It was for me, he didn't mix it up enough. Like at some point, something like the thing is, I pride like on Tierney is his footballing IQ, especially when he first came in. You could see the contrasting difference between Bellerin on the attack and Tierney on the attack, and we were like, Bellerin, you need to be looking at Tierney. But now it seems like Tierney's doing what Bellerin used to do, which is these stupid floating crosses. And at some point, you got to think, actually, it's Burnley. What do they love doing? Heading the ball. Let me put it on the floor. Like, after you do 3, 4, okay, you've done 6. At what number do you now start to say, actually, let me play it on the ground? Something's got, and this is why it's hard, like, whether I want to blame Arteta or whether I want to blame like the players on this. But the Kieran Tierney performance is solely on him because he just decided to continuously do what wasn't working. And that's why I'm giving him a 3. I know I'm being harsh today, but some of the decision-making was poor from the players. And for me, every time he got the ball, I was like, he ain't gonna do nothing, is he? This is just gonna be another attack that breaks down, and that's constantly what was happening. And it's annoying because we know how good he can be and how influential he can be, especially in the attacks. So that's my reasonings for it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give Tierney a 4, just because I feel like I can understand more, Gabrielle and Holding really struggling in their progression because they didn't have a midfield outlet, and quite frankly, I don't have as high of expectations on the ball as I do for them as I do with Tierney. And I think he just got to a point where he just decided, I don't want to lose the ball. You could sense the nervousness within the team. You could always sense it with Tierney as well, because he gets kind of rash and he'll clear balls when he could bring it down instead. And he has weird touches and he just didn't have enough invention. And when Tierney is confident, he's almost unplayable, really. But when he's not, he becomes so average, and he's such a big part of how we attack that I can't possibly give him the same as a 5 as I did Holding and Gabrielle. I thought he stunted our attack a lot by some of his decision making. So I definitely give him a 4. Stop with the floating freaking crosses to Lacazette.
It's a fitness thing. Do you think it's a fitness thing? Because minus the lack of quality on the ball from Kieran Tierney, minus the poor crossing, there definitely feels like a lack of energy from him. There isn't the same tenacity. He's not going into challenges aggressively. It doesn't feel the same.
He might be afraid to get hurt. He might be
Probably.
afraid to get injured,
Maybe.
Because I think Thomas had a little bit of that as well, where he was playing on the periphery of the game. He wasn't going into tackles hard. Some of these players I think are afraid to get injured because they've been injured a lot. And that's kind of the game. It's like,
yeah. I mean, we have accused Kieran Tierney of being like 100 miles per hour all of the time, haven't we? And almost sometimes how he might need to calm it down a little bit because he is quite injury prone. So maybe this is him trying to manage his fitness a little bit more and be a bit sensible.
What I would say is that and this is going to sound harsh, but as bad as Kolasinac is, what he did know is if he could get down to that byline and smack it across low and hard, somebody would nick it in, whether it was one of the defenders or one of our players. Tierney needs to take a page out of said Kolasinac's book and just low and hard, buddy, and as hard as you can. Because sometimes I just feel like a nice, neat cutback or just a hard cross could do us wonders sometimes, because you never know what might happen. But them little floaty ones, I'm telling you what's happening. Nothing. Moving on. So let's talk Sambi. Whew. It's so difficult because I don't want to go in on him. My eye always goes to him, like it always does, because the midfield is so important. And that box of their 2 strikers, I don't know their names. They're all the same. They're all Westwood to me. I'm not even kidding. They're all Westwood and Barnes to me. And I don't even know if Barnes was out there. But Westwood, Barnes and Westwood were boxing Sambi in. And he was hiding. And then he just didn't have a lot in his game today. And I think when you watch Arsenal playing, you know that Sambi's there. You just know that you have a really good chance of getting at us. And that's unfortunate. So I don't think he was ever meant to play this amount of games, but since he's out there, we have to grade him. And he's just not doing it, and I got to give him like a 3 because he was hiding. He was actually, no, I'll give him a 4, but I think he was hiding, and that doesn't help. But then also when he didn't hide, and we were saying like, we really appreciate that he doesn't hide, we've been punished a lot when he doesn't hide as well, against Nottingham Forest and against Crystal Palace, So what do? Do you let him get the ball and potentially lose the game, or is it better that he hides and we can't progress the ball off the pitch? So what do you think?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Harry, if you have something to say. Go ahead.
Well, he's never going to get over those fears by hiding, right? The only way to get rid of that is to get on the ball. So that's certainly not the way of him progressing individually as a footballer, or even as an individual. If you've got confidence issues, you have to keep going until you make it better. I totally appreciate that, that there's a risk over reward that's going on in his head. And if he gives away the ball, we might concede, but you can't play with fear. I've always said that, for me, when I watch football, central midfield is such a hard position to play, and receiving your back to ball is incredibly hard, and good players make it easy. But there's many footballers who go on a pitch in high level games and they hide, and when they're hiding, they are basically void. Sambi could not have been there today, and I don't want to be too harsh on the kid, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt against Liverpool and said he didn't hide and he always tried. But today he hid. And there were a few times when Kieran Tierney had the balls from throw-ins and he literally stood behind Vidra where he could not get the ball. And that's really, really poor. And I get it might be linked to confidence or overall setup, but ultimately it's just not acceptable because that's why you're there. And I'd rather put Callum Chambers in there. I'd rather put Ben White in there. I really would. Because if they're going to be comfortable on the ball, then at least you can play. We missed Sambi at every opportunity. So in that respect, he didn't actually make that many mistakes on the ball. He kind of used it relatively well because he always played it safe. But in terms of starting attacks and grabbing the game by the balls and saying, right, I'm gonna put my stamp on this game, he didn't do it. And it bypassed him. And, that was probably the most frustrating thing today. We had a 4-1-4, but it just felt like we were going from defense to attack, and there was nothing in the middle. And it was viewable all game. And I can't believe we didn't change it. I can't believe no one put an arm around Sambi. I can't believe we didn't try to ease him in. It just felt like he was just there, ghosting, get a little ball, pass it to the side, and then not go and get it back. And yeah, for me, really hard for me to give any rating for Sambi today because I just thought he was really, really, really poor.
No rating.
But because I just
incomplete assignment.
Yeah. And listen, I really like Sambi. I think he's going to go on to be a really, really good player at Arsenal. At the minute, his confidence is low, but I don't think hiding is the way to change that. And then you've got to say to yourself, well, wait a minute, this is Burnley, right? No disrespect to their central midfielders, but come on. You can ease yourself into the game. Go get the ball of Ramsdale and make things happen. But he just hid for 90 minutes. So, yeah, really disappointing performance.
You guys,
really
we've literally never won a game with a single pivot.
I mean, yeah.
Under Arteta, we haven't. We've literally never won a game. Like, even against Sunderland, we struggled when El Neni was by himself, remember? And then we had to bring Granit Xhaka in.
Is that arrogance from Arteta? What is this? Why then? Or is it?
We're asking the right questions. I think we're starting to ask some of the right questions because it's like, is there not a chance that, and this is, some people have been saying this in the comment section, and I've always kind of just shirked it off, but why not maybe play and I know it's somebody else in midfield in the double pivot, like a Chambers or somebody, and just try it, or even Ben White or something, at least try it, because what we do know is that whenever we play a single pivot, this is my homework over the break. I'm going to count the amount of times that Xhaka and Thomas Partey have been missing, because I know it's been a lot. And every time we played a single pivot, I guarantee we haven't won the game. But I just want it for my own, because why do we keep doing it? I
don't know.
Yeah.
Is it a case of him trying to develop the plan B? Because people say we don't have a plan B. Well, this unfortunately is our plan B, whether it's due to circumstances. Is he actually just trying to make it work by carrying it on and on and on and continuously doing it until it works? But because obviously it's not working. Maybe that's his thought, that repetition will help the players understand it. Ultimately, when the centre halves get the ball, they only had Sambi to pass it to in terms of making an easy pass, right? A quick 5-yard pass. Otherwise, it was all passes through the lines, which ultimately Holding and Gabriel didn't feel comfortable to do. And furthermore, ESR didn't want that pass. There were a few times when ESR, had his back to play with maybe Ben Mee up his backside, and he didn't really want that ball. He wants it to go to Xhaka, and then he wants to get on the half turn and pick it up. So for me, it's just confusing that we haven't tried Chambers in there. Maybe, I don't know. I know it's not glamorous and it's Callum Chambers and he's got relegated for Middlesbrough and Fulham and he shouldn't even be in the squad, blah, blah, blah. But if he's there, then why not just play him next to Sambi and then you have your foundation? And then the best thing about ESR recently has been cameos off of the bench. But we're not doing that because he's having to start. So it also gives you the option of resting a Martinelli, Odegaard, ESR, Saka, whoever it is, and having someone off the bench. So I can't believe we didn't try it. And I can't believe he tried it again with Sambi on his own. For me, it's just like you're just making the same mistake over and over again and you're expecting different results.
If El Neni couldn't do it against Sunderland, then Sambi can't do it against Burnley. That's just the reality. Like it just, we have not, I guarantee we have not won a game with this particular setup, meaning ESR and Odegaard, or ESR and Ceballos, or Ceballos and Odegaard, because I know we've done some combination of that in the last 2 seasons. It has not worked. So why do we keep doing it? And why don't we do something different?
I think we did it at home to Norwich, right, when we won 1-0, or away at Burnley as well. And it worked by maybe scoreline, but in terms of performance, it didn't really work. We all knew that we never
Yeah, no, but
dominated the ball.
yeah. Oya Talani says, what do you guys think about taking him out of the team completely when he was at top form? So this kind of goes back to what's happened to Sambi. You know, he had a poor game against Liverpool when we got beat up 4-0. And he played against Newcastle, though, and he wasn't taken straight out of the team. He played well, almost had like a man of the match performance against Newcastle. And he played in there with, I think, Thomas Partey. And then the very next game that we played against Man United, I believe, that was the one that he was taken out of the team. And we played El Neni instead. And ever since then, Sambi has kind of been a shell of himself. Do you think that may have contributed to him not being as confident, you know, just being dropped out of the team? I mean, I feel like Tavares might have a little bit of that as well. They were playing so much and they were so confident, and now they kind of been, you know, cast aside.
I don't think it is. I think they're young players at the end of the day, and I don't think they weren't meant to ever play this many games. And I understand the point of, you know, they were on confidence and maybe we should have played them through that. But for me, it's just more to do with the fact that I think when we look at the level of oppositions they played before they came across Man United, like they are players, they're good games to play. But at the same time, we need a solution to beat United. And even with El Neni in the team, we did play well. And I think if Lokonga came in, this is 2 similar midfielders, and we may have come undone in that game. And I think when you look at the likes of Bruno, McTominay and Fred coming and pressing at you, you know, constantly for 90 minutes, it's going to cause some issues for you. So I don't know. The thing is, at the end of the day, Arteta's decisions, and I think the way he portrays that to a Lokonga, to a Tavares, to the reasonings why they're not starting a certain game, is a bigger impact than them being dropped. And I think Lokonga, before the season started, or before he even signed for the club, must have been told, look, you're not going to be starting every game. Yes, you're going to have your odd games, but you are ultimately going to be dropped for some games. Well, not dropped, but you're going to be on the bench for certain games. So I think he already knew that, and I don't think that's what burnt his confidence. I think it's just recent performances that he's had that have caused him to lose confidence in himself. And I think the annoying thing is, when Lokonga was on the ball, he actually did some positive things, especially like crossballs to Saka, for example. You know, he did a few things that made you think, actually, why not get him on the ball a bit more? But again, again, I agree. Like, you have to demand the ball sometimes. You have to go up to Ramsdale and go, give me the goddamn ball and make something happen.
Yes.
And he doesn't do that. Oh, by the way, Chelsea have just scored.
Cool. But just quickly on Tavares, am I right in saying that when he made those errors, you know, Arteta did keep him in the team, and then we were almost saying, right, it's now time
straight
to
after
bring
Liverpool,
KT
still
in.
in.
It's one of those as well where as I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it, and I'm just thinking that there may have been opportunities. Like, I get, like, it's difficult because when Tavares was there, we were feeling like it's time to bring Tierney back in. So it's like, but there were times where we were in an ascendancy, where we were playing really well, where there might have been opportunities to give minutes to Sambi and Tavares, knowing that we're going to go through a difficult period in January, to keep them good. Because if you had brought, you know, Tavares in halfway through the Leeds game, would we have lost that game? Probably not. If you had taken Thomas Partey out, you know, against Norwich, when we were up like 5-0 and gave Sambi some more minutes, would that have hurt? So there is a little bit here of like, there was time to prep for this within the squad, because now we're relying upon players that haven't played and are probably low on confidence, because we were so desperate to continue to play our starting 11. But maybe Arteta just does not feel comfortable with anybody but that group. That's what it really feels like. He does not feel confident with anything but that starting 11. And how are you meant to get confident with anything else if you don't work through it?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's really worrying if that's the case. If that, you know, with 5-10 minutes to go against Burnley, who are literally putting 11 men behind the ball, if if you don't feel confident enough to bring on a Tavares, then that's quite worrying. I'm not sure what that says about Arteta or what that says about Tavares, in his current form or at this current time. But there's alarm bells there if he doesn't feel confident in making those changes.
All right, so let's move on to Odegaard. I thought he was playing pretty well in that first half, to be honest. I thought if anything was going to happen, it was going to come from Odegaard and Bukayo Saka. He fell away a little bit in the second half, and I think that's because we started to go down the left and try to get ESR into the game and stuff like that. But ultimately, for me, Odegaard is another one right in there with Saka and Ben White that are some of our most important players, and he's playing out of position. And he's a number 10 that needs to play in between the lines and needs to be fed by the central defensive midfielders. That's pretty much where we're at. So when he has to play a little bit deeper next to Sambi, we lose a little bit of that. And then that's where you look at Smith Rowe and you're like, are you doing enough to get in between the lines, show your feet? I thought ESR was really lost until like those last 20 minutes. So Odegaard for me was okay. Like, I think I'll just give him a 6. I don't think he was amazing. But again, he was one of those where you can tell that he has the quality and he's going to be really important for us, but he kind of needs to be in his position. And the way you keep him in his position so that we can benefit from it is making sure you have enough players to play in that pivot, because they are the most unreliable, so there you go, but anybody have something different to say on Odegaard? Are we okay with the 6? Do we want to go higher or lower?
No,
or are we
going
okay?
higher. I thought he was the best player on the pitch in the game in terms of. The thing is, this is the second time he's shown his qualities over a lot of players, and I thought he was technically secure on the ball. He did what he needed to do. He was doing more than actually what he's probably required as an advanced playmaker. He was coming back deep to try and help, with the fact that Lokonga didn't want to play today, and the fact that ESR seemed to be kind of. I don't even know what's going on with ESR in that position, because he, at the start of the season, a lot of people told me he'd be the better number 8 than Odegaard, but seemingly Odegaard's playing that role far better than ESR is. And one of the things that we spoke about, Odegaard, doesn't drive with the ball, but he seems to be far better right now at driving the ball forward than ESR has. And for me, this is kind of where the issue comes in, because he's having to come to the halfway line or come into our third, defensive third. He's unable to affect the pitch higher up, but every time he did, something happened. Whether it was his pass to a Saka and then Saka passing it off, it always started at the heart of Odegaard making something happen. So I'm giving him a 7. He was by far the best player on the pitch that game, and and that's all I've got to say. It's annoying because people are going to say that he didn't create a lot of chances. He didn't, but that's
he can't.
He
can't. He was too deep. This is the thing. It's like you expect Odegaard to help Sambi defensively and also support Saka on the right, but also be central and up high enough to create chances. What was ESR doing? Like, that's the thing, is if Odegaard is deeper, then Smith Rowe needs to get on the ball, and Odegaard has impetus as a number 10 to get on the ball. He tries to get on it. He moves. You can tell. With ESR, I just feel like right now he is a wide forward that we are projecting him to be something that he's not yet. Wide forward, his best moment of the game came wide, dribbling past. Like, he's definitely not a central player. So for me, Odegaard not creating much has more to do with the composition of midfield and him being made to do maybe 2 roles in midfield and trying to help Sambi than him being poor. And if he's not playing number 10, then what was the number 10 doing? That's just all I'm saying. So Odegaard, for me, best player, probably one of our best players. Harry, did you want to give him something different than like a 6, or are you good?
No, I mean, he should have scored, right? He should have taken that chance in the first half. When it got pulled back. That was Odegaard, right?
I thought he had, did they block it?
Yeah, I think it blocked it, and then Lacazette had the open goal.
Oh yeah, it felt like he should have scored. But yeah, a 6. I thought he did pretty well in, like you say, in the circumstances with no real structure behind him. So yeah, it's good to see him playing really, really well. So I think, do you know what? I actually think he'll go on to be a real top player for this club. I think for the fee we've paid for him, I think it's an incredible signing. So yeah, long may it continue from his perspective.
He needs better players around him.
Yeah, he does. Do you know what
he
he needs?
better
He
players
needs to
around him.
play
Yeah.
behind a class striker as well. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he needs someone who he can hit, bounce a ball off. Someone's going to spin him behind. You know, can you imagine? No disrespect to Lacazette, good player, top pro, all of the rest of it, but can you imagine being a creative midfielder and centrally your guy is always literally back to play, or he never wants to go in behind the defenders? Like, it must be a nightmare. So I think if we go and invest money in the centre forward position, I think you'll see another level to Odegaard, another level.
Yeah, exactly. And so Odegaard, I thought, was good, but then you look at ESR, and here's the thing about Smith Rowe is that I think I have a little bit, not an agenda, but I found it strange how I felt like Arsenal fans wanted to force him into the lineup. Take out Odegaard, take out Martinelli. He hasn't done anything to take the spot from either of those guys, as far as I'm concerned. And he has a specific skill set that's very valuable to us, but we haven't seen it a lot in these last couple. What?
2-0.
Chelsea 2? Okay,
2-0.
good. Woo! Save our bacon. It's sad when you're an Arsenal fan and you're like wanting Chelsea to win. Like
No, it's not. Like, it's against Spurs. We want everyone to win.
This is true. This is true. But so Emil, like, he has a special skill set that is very valuable to us, but we just haven't seen it. And I just don't see him as a central player right now. Like, I don't think he has what we need centrally, and that's why Odegaard is better in that position for us. And so it's difficult because Emil is just better off of the left-hand side, and Martinelli, who I thought had a poor game today, still is probably number one in that position. So Smith Rowe is somebody who I just think is probably on like the side, like he's just kind of on the periphery right now, but I'm looking for him to make a real play to take somebody's spot, and I just don't think he's really doing it. He had that really good run, but I have to be honest, that's it. You know, the first 45 minutes passed him by. He wasn't getting in between the lines. He wasn't getting on the ball. He was soft on the ball as well. He does this thing where his passes are really soft and kind of loose, and you know, we lose momentum on our breaks because his passes just don't have the speed on it. And so he's just somebody that I think is lacking a little bit of confidence. That being said, seeing how Tavares has played the last time that I seen him play, see how Sambi's playing, see how ESR is playing, Arteta needs to find a way to keep players keyed in, whether they're playing or not. They should not lose form completely because they don't play a couple of games. It's his job to keep the entire team happy.
I don't think ESR is fit. I just don't think he's match fit. I think he was coming off the bench for a reason, scoring goals and doing well. I just don't think he's match fit to start. That's my view. I don't think at the moment he's developed enough of his all-round game to play as an 8. I think he can play as a 10, but I think it's only in certain types of games where there's almost it's quite open and quite a lot of space for him to drive and dribble in. I think he's obviously more suited to the left-hand side, but at the minute, Gabriel Martinelli has his spot. But in all honesty, Jess, I just don't think he's match fit. Because he
really,
just
I'm not sure that I feel the same. I feel like he was fit and he was.
I think we're patching him up to play. I think we're patching him up. I think we're patching him up.
Well, fair. I mean, fair enough. Like if that's true, if that's true, fair. You know, like I'm cool with that, and maybe I'm just being a little bit harsh. I have this weird feeling that everybody that's on the bench that doesn't play doesn't seem to be able to give us anything off the bench, you know, and ESR I feel like has lost confidence, but hey, he could just be getting patched up, and that's fair enough. I'm going to give Smith Rowe, may seem harsh, probably a 4.5, 5. I just think beyond that one run that really had Lacazette put it away, I probably wouldn't feel this way. I'd probably just have thrown it all away and just been like, who cares? But because we didn't score it, he has to get a 4.5, 5. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. But and they're the margins, right? You know, if he almost gets a world-class assist where he takes the ball, dribbles around, pulls it back, but Lacazette fluffs his line. So instead, you know, he's had quite a subdued game. But yeah, I'd say a 4 or 5, 4.5.
Souls, you cool with that?
Yeah, he's like I said, he didn't make a statement to start, But maybe Harry's right. Maybe he is somewhat getting over an injury, or he's not fully fit. I guess after the 17 days, he's got no excuses. So time will tell on that one. But yeah, no, it's another disappointing showing. I think he could have done more to influence the game, but I'm not going to get into him too much because he has been phenomenal this season. So yeah, it's just one of those off games again for him. Yeah, I agree, like a 3-4 for him.
All right, fair enough. So let's move on to the front group. The goalless folks up here. So start with Saka. Fell off in the second half, but probably was the only person that looked like they were probably going to do something in the first. He needs a rest. Like, I just look at him and I don't see anything but somebody that has basically been carrying us for 2 seasons and probably just needs to sit down. Yeah, that's really about it. I mean, in the second half, you could just tell, like, he was just, his legs were gone. He was done, and so, and I think a little bit of his concentration went as well. So the balls were running underneath his feet. The pressure was on. The pressure is usually always on him anyway. And he just wasn't able to save us today, and it is what it is. But I thought in the first half, he was the most likely to make something happen, but he wasn't great, so I got to give him like a 4.5, 5, just like ESR. I honestly am probably going to give Martinelli the same thing. I thought he was pretty poor as well. But yeah, Saka 4.5, 5. What do you think, Harry?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think we're patching him up as well. I think the first 5-10 minutes, I thought he just didn't seem to be running as fluidly. There didn't seem to be that confidence in his dribbling. In fairness to him, I don't know how Eric Peters wasn't booked. I don't think he was booked, but I mean, he was persistently fouled, it felt like anyway.
Well, the referee wanted to keep all 11 Burnley players on the pitch. That was pretty obvious. He saw that they were out of control, and then he just stopped giving them cards. He gave them cards in the very beginning and stopped.
And he kept on playing advantage, which wasn't really an advantage, and then almost forgot about the foul. But anyway, I thought Saka was okay, to be honest. It's fine margins. Those times where he stands up Peters and he cuts and he has a shot, if it goes in, we're talking about, a really good individual performance. But obviously, his shooting boots were a little bit off today. So I'd probably say, a 5 out of 10. But I feel harsh on criticising players who are clearly trying, but I just don't think that they're sharp. I just don't feel like we're seeing the Saka of a few months ago. And that's, like you say, it probably is because he's been playing every single game and carrying us for 2 years. And, had you had a Pepe on the bench, you're probably bringing on Pepe for the final 20 minutes. So I'd probably say, say a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, he did have Peters in the first half. I get what you're saying, but the second half was, you have a good half and then you have a really bad second half. It kind of evens things out. So 4.5, 5 is just average, really, and I think that the entire performance beyond that first half, like if you add both of them together, comes out to average, so that's kind of what you get there. Souls, what do you have on Saka?
For Saka, I would probably agree. I'd say a 5. I think it was an off game again for him. It was just one of those where just nothing went on for him, and I think it's annoying because there's no one else that can take him out of the gutters. And I think the fact that we didn't give him support when they were double teaming him, triple teaming him. That's why I said, like, I think the more frustration comes in. Arteta could have made a change, a positive change, and bring in like a Tavares, someone who can maybe overlap him instead, to give him that additional support, just to have a number there to drag maybe a centre back away from him. And in terms of like Martinelli, I think he just needs to put his head up sometimes, and it's frustrating. Today it really pissed me off because there were so many opportunities where just cross the ball. Like, what are you actually doing? And I think that's one thing that annoyed me today about Martinelli's performance was he could have just put his head up and looked for the option rather than just putting his head down and just hitting it into no man's land. And that's kind of where the issue with him came in. But again, I think Martinelli for me gets like a 4 and Saka gets a 5 today. Again, just underwhelming performance.
Well, Martinelli didn't have a good half, At least Saka had a good half. Martinelli didn't have a good half. I really
Yeah,
thought that
I
Martinelli
thought
would.
Martinelli did okay today. It's weird.
I thought he was
Weird. I
tragic.
thought he
Like,
did
I don't
it.
know. I thought,
Really, yeah.
you know what
I
I,
only
you know
caught
what I
that
think
again.
though? Like, you know what I think, you guys, and this is why with the young players, even though I can give them a harsh rating, it doesn't really change how I feel about them, is
Yeah,
because they've been found out. They've been found out. Like that's basically all it is. I think Martinelli is one that he's not a secret anymore. You know, he came into the side randomly, you know, and then started scoring goals and people didn't know what to do. Now they know what to do. So now he needs to figure out
Mm.
his next level in the game. Saka, they instead of double teaming him, they're triple teaming him. Now they're double teaming Martinelli. And because we have nothing centrally that's dangerous, not in midfield and not in the striker position, it's very easy just to nullify them without any repercussions of somebody else being available and taking over. So I think with Martinelli in particular, he just needs to figure out what the next level is. Now that you've been figured out and people know that you want to hold on to the ball and kind of, you know, they kind of got you what you're doing now and they know that they can double team you. Can you give it to a teammate quicker? Can you pick your head up and pick somebody out? Can you release the cross faster? He's become a little bit head down and he needs to lift his head up. But he's also just somebody that people have this happens. If you have 4 or 5 really good games, people watch tape, they figure out who you are, and then you need to figure out the next thing that you're going to do. And so that's on Saka and Martinelli. And I know that they're going to get there, but because we don't have anybody else up top, you know, or anybody centrally, when they are getting double teamed, there's definitely somebody open or definitely somebody that can run in behind or something, but they just don't do it. And that's our issue. But do you guys kind of agree that like it's just the next level of their progression, learning how to deal with people double teaming them, making decisions a little bit quicker? Because the decision making was just really slow today, and maybe it's just because they don't have as much space as people have found them out.
100%. I think Saka's sort of overcoming his sort of when he's been found out in terms of the double team, even the triple team. To be fair, he handled it quite well, but sometimes it's a lack of support. And I think with the fact that Tierney didn't really support him on the inside run sometimes, and he's a constant overlapper, it did affect the way Martinelli plays, and that option, because sometimes he was isolated on the left hand side, just being double teamed with no option to pass, with no space to really bring a cross in. But at the same time, it's his dwindling on the ball, which needs to improve. He just needs to sometimes, just first time, just cross the ball in rather than run with the ball and and then run himself into no space. And I think that's what's happening more than, when you said about, is it the lack of space? I think he runs himself into no space, and that's the issue. His decision making just needs to speed up, but it's part of learning and adapting, and he's a young player. I know in time, especially when you look at the little improvements we're seeing with him, that he'll overcome, and he'll learn how to overcome those. So it's not a worry, but it's just how long will it take him to overcome that?
Yeah, I think for Martinelli, it's just about him continuing to develop and probably work on those areas of his game. I think his link-up play is something he needs to work on. His combination play and the relationships that he builds with Kieran Tierney is important. When Kieran Tierney is going down the line, to make sure he comes inside and picks up the ball, almost reminiscent of how Ashley Cole and Perez used to work together. They were almost in sync and they always knew where to find each other. So I think that's something that Tierney needs to work with Martinelli, and vice versa. And obviously, Martinelli plays the game a bit like Sanchez, very head down. It makes it very individual, where he wants to take on the fullback and beat him. He wants to get a yard and have a shot. Whereas sometimes he can just slow things down a little bit and look to make those little passes and a 1-2 around the corner and try and get on the end of things. Then rather than trying to be the person who actually dribbles with the ball, takes in and shoots and crosses. But I think he's improved, in many areas of his game. There's now this thing of the ball going over his shoulder and he's just kind of taking it out of the sky, and his first touch and his dribbling is wonderful. So I feel like today was I don't know, I liked his efforts and endeavour today. But obviously the end product wasn't there. And you'd say the same about Katie, about Saka, about Lacazette. But I liked his persistence. I like the fact that he carried on getting at the fullback, and he made sure that the fullback had a tough day. But obviously his decision making was off. So we didn't get those end moments or those magic moments. But I actually thought he was one of our better players today. But maybe it's just me being at the ground and getting lost in the energy and the atmosphere.
You know what else though? Like, it's hard to cross the ball early and make early decisions when there's nobody to cross it to. There's also the aspect of when you're looking up and Lacazette is behind you, who are you about to cross it to? So true. It's one of those, and because those players are always involved in our buildup, there especially because we didn't have midfield, like it just was going to be a difficult day. But I agree with everything that you guys have said. There has been an update on Tomiyasu. Arteta said Tomiyasu had an injury. We didn't have anybody to play in that position against Liverpool, and he needed to recover and look after himself to try to be available as quick as he can. He will be out for a few weeks. So he kind of needs to have this break, and he was called up to the Japanese national team. He needs to stay his ass at home.
What is the injury? Is it muscular or what's his injury? Do you know?
It's I think it's like a thigh strain or something like that.
So we really must have patched him up for the Liverpool game. Then they must have. Really...
And it still wasn't it still was, but I think he is so key to us being a decent team. So hopefully those 2 weeks can go. It's 17 days off or so. He can patch himself up and get better, because it's we need him. But that's really unfortunate. Let's see. So Lacazette. Look, the miss was shocking. But even before that, let's keep it 100. He had 2 opportunities where he could have shot. I thought it was criminal for the man that's wearing the number 9 on his back to do a Cruyff turn in the box and then have a wide open shot, and instead of shooting it, pass it outside the box to your left back to shoot it. Absolutely criminal. We talked about this, Souls. It almost feels like he feels almost ashamed that he's not a good striker, so he just doesn't strike. And it's becoming something where it's like, ooh, we got the 4 or 5 good games from you, but now you're back, and I don't like it. The miss was just, you knew he was going to miss. You just knew it. And it's just
I didn't. I was thinking he'd score. It was an open goal.
I was
if you're ever going to score a goal, this will be a goal.
I saw Lacazette running up to it, and I was just like, he's so missing. It's just, because I think when you look at him, you can just tell that there's somebody that's like, my job is to create. I'm not a striker. They've told me I'm lack of threat, and I'm going to live up to that. Get your head out of your ass. Shoot. And shoot into the goal. He also had another shot in the first half that was painfully wide that he should have at least worked the keeper. I mean, wow.
Was that when he went on the little dribble and took someone on and had a shot?
Yeah.
So to be honest, I like that, because I was like, oh yeah, this is Lacazette. This is almost old Lacazette, picking up the ball, taking on a player. I haven't actually seen him dribble past someone with pace in a long time and have a shot. I was like, oh, okay, this could be a promising game for Lacazette. But yeah, just huffed and puffed. I'd almost go as far as saying that when we have Partey and Xhaka and Odegaard, then you get a better Lacazette. But at the moment, it feels like in this 4-1-4-1 system where I don't know, he just doesn't seem to be able to contribute to the game at all. And we're in a situation where we are desperate for a striker, and we're also in a situation where if this striker deal doesn't work out, you're then saying, right, let's go with Aubameyang again, because.
Well,
we can't.
That's another thing, is that somebody asked, does this open up the door for us crawling back to Aubameyang and saying, we need you, because we took that hard stance, we don't need you anymore. We were playing good, 19 goals. We don't need you, but nobody's buying him. We're not getting Vlahovic. And so does this lead back to us reintegrating Aubameyang and kind of with our tail between our legs, actually we can't deal without you? I don't think Aubameyang's a perfect solution, but does it, Harry? Does it open up the door?
Of course, it has to open up the door. We're not good enough to cope without having at least two good strikers. All right, unless Eddie Nketiah suddenly finds his goal scoring boots and becomes this absolute super sub and a poacher, then then I might be wrong. But at the moment, we need options. Now, of course, when Pepe comes back, it gives you the opportunity to push Martinelli inside, to even try Pepe up front, whatever it is going to be, false nine. But at the moment, if Aubameyang was fit and ready today, then you could say that, hey, off the bench he might have been useful. Lacazette has lost all confidence in front of goal, all confidence. And when you're a striker, that's quite bad, So something needs to change. And I do believe had we had an extra central midfielder, ESR could have been off the bench, and that's when you see Martinelli go inside and ESR comes on and Lacazette comes off. But at the moment, when you're chasing a goal and you've got Lacazette and Nketiah on the pitch, things aren't looking good, unfortunately. And this is quite a bad position to be in when you have top four in sight. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom, but we are well and truly in that top four race, 100%. It's not about expectations or how bad you think the manager is or how good you think we are. From a points perspective, we are in touching distance of top four. Therefore, we're in a top four race. However, if things don't improve from a squad selection perspective and from having a strong substitutes bench, then we will be well and truly out of a top four race. So something has to change. And if that means getting Aubameyang back and putting an arm around him and telling him you love him and he's amazing and whatever it is, then you do that, because we need goals. And unfortunately, Lacazette is starved of goals, starved.
Yeah. What do you think, Souls? Does this open up the door for Aubameyang to come back? I mean, the reality is that Arteta literally just said that he does not know if any deals will get done. We've already spoken about Vlahovic is not going to happen. Like, we all, I don't know who needs to clip it. Vlahovic, whatever the hell his name is not coming. And most teams are not going to give us their starting striker in January if they're fighting for anything. So the idea that we're going to get in a striker, for me, just feels so out of bounds. And so Aubameyang coming back into the fold does feel like something, but it's very much so tail tucked between our legs, because the stance wasn't that he just went to AFCON and now is coming back. He was pushed out of the side because he was behaving poorly, So what do you think? Soul's there. Are you hearing it, Harry, or no?
Sorry, say that again. My thing was paused there.
Am I there?
Yeah,
Am
sorry,
I there? Oh, I don't see Souls. I think Souls is gone. Okay, well, let's go ahead and rate Lacazette. I mean, what are you gonna give him?
Oh, I mean, this almost feels like a not available, right? I mean, a 3. I mean, what did we have? We had like 2 or 3 good chances. We had 2 or 3 chances. We had one glorious chance, and Lacazette fumbled. I mean, yeah, I don't want to be too harsh on Lacazette, because I understand his role within the team. I know it's like a Firmino type role where we're not relying on him to score lots of goals. I totally get that, but I need to see something where we back you a little bit to score a goal. And if you're missing an open goal, it doesn't really fill you with much confidence. And the frustrating thing today is that we always knew it would be a really tight game. Well, I didn't expect a number of chances. I knew we weren't going to have copious amounts of one-on-ones and open goals and whatnot. And when you create a decent chance, you need him to push it away. So I'd probably say, a 4. And this whole dodging the penalty box thing is also really annoying me. Please just get in the box. When you see Kieran Tierney overlap, get in the 6-yard box, and don't just stand there. Make a run.
Well, he won't make a run. He doesn't jump for anything either. He's always nailed to the ground. Oh, I'm so short. So what's the point? Actually, at least try to knock him off a little bit. He's very much so in I'm sorry, I'm not a good striker. I'm just here to create. Like he's very much so in that mode, and it's kind of annoying at this point. So I don't know. Lacazette for me. And here's the thing: is we always look at the big chances missed, but we were like not really creating that much up like before that. And then they always snatch and miss the one chance that they get that's wide open. Eddie Nketiah did the exact same thing against Everton. He would have saved us from being embarrassed in that match. Really, we would have went away and been like, oh, well, we drew the game, so it's fine, or we would have won it, whatever, with Eddie, because he missed that wide open header. Aubameyang had a couple of those as well, like in that bad run that we had where he was missing sitters, and now Lacazette's doing the same. And I think that comes from lack of confidence, having all that pressure on you. And when you look at other teams, and this is why I just feel like when we look at top four and we're like, we're definitely up there and we should be a top four team, we don't have game changers and people that want to hold us up in moments of adversity and be the one to put the ball in the back of the net. We just don't have it. Most teams do. We just don't. We don't have the ability to put pressure on a team for 10 minutes at the back end of a game after we played like shit and put that one chance away. We just don't have anybody like that. The mindset of our senior players in particular are almost like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm not good. And it's just, that's not really what you need. So Lacazette gets a 2 for me. His performances are really like day by day getting worse and worse. Maybe he needs a break, but we really need a striker. Souls, what is your rating on Lacazette?
What's the lowest we can go?
How low can you go? I don't know.
Honestly, it's the lowest we can go because this was shocking.
That would make it a 0. I'm afraid.
Can we not go -10 or anything? Whatever the lowest is, right? I'm giving it him because for me, it's shocking to miss those opportunities. I don't care whether you're not confident, and the fact that you had the audacity to do a Cruyff turn and then not shoot is another thing. And the thing is, we definitely need a striker. We need a midfielder. There's a few positions that are key to bringing in, but the reality behind it is that the midfield at least comes back. Aubameyang's been appalling. They've got 7 goals between them in the league, and we're halfway through the season. It's shocking to have strikers, 2 strikers only scoring 7 goals in the entire season so far, whereas where ESR has had nearly double-figure goals. It is embarrassing, and that's the reality to why our situation is like this. We don't have an out-and-out goal scorer. We're relying on 4 or 5 different people to hopefully turn up and score, and then we're relying on Eddie Nketiah to come in and do it. So that's the big problem. We do need a prolific goal scorer right now. I'd even just go, you know what? Ethic, just go and pay Isak's release clause because that's a guarantee buy. Just do something because we do need someone to come in and push this team over the edge. Because without a striker, we can forget about how we're performing or whether we're playing good. Without bringing in a striker this window, we can kiss the top 4 goodbye because I don't think it happens. So, and I think he's been awful because those chances you should be putting away. I understand, it's 1 chance, it's 2 chances, but it's the fact of the matter, it was an open goal, and then you stopped shooting. It's a combination of all, and then you didn't even build up. You didn't do that part of your game either. So it's one of those weird ones where, what did you actually do?
Well, and I keep hearing it. I know that it's that people are like, well, that's why we need Vlahovic, but that man doesn't want to come to Arsenal. That's my thing is that, and we've known that since the beginning of the window. One of the first reports that came out about our interest in him is he was not interested in the project. He wasn't, and so there probably are, and I would think there's some other opportunities to look at in the market, but it's too late now. And it's become over this month more and more obvious that we just don't have the striker. And one thing I'd like to look at when we look at strikers in the future is the mentality for sure. Because it's not good enough just to be a good goal scorer. We need somebody to lead the line and lead the team from the front. And we've really missed that. As good as Aubameyang is, if he's not feeling good, it ain't happening. And we kind of need somebody that's going to is not going to go in and out. We need something more. And we just been missing that for so long. Like Alexis Sanchez was like that. He wasn't a striker, but he would bail us out. Like he would bail us out. Like even when we were playing shit, he was always probably one of the best players on the pitch. He never like just gave up and shirked his duties and all that kind of stuff. And we need a game changer. You know, at the back end of Manchester United's game against West Ham, they brought like Martial and Cavani off the bench. I think at one point they had Rashford, Ronaldo, Cavani, Martial, all on the pitch at once, and they'd just taken off Greenwood. We can say that we don't have that depth, but we also don't have the game changers in our team.
Yeah.
Like Martinelli and Saka will eventually be that, but they're 20. And so whatever striker we bring in kind of has to be that guy that's like, give it to me, I'm going to put it in the back of the net. And we seem to have some senior players in particular that are like, actually, we're under a lot of pressure. I'm not sure if I want the ball. Let me pass it off to the kid. And that's definitely not what we need right now. So Lacazette, was not a good game for him. Let's rate Arteta. I mean, you can say that he put out his strongest lineup, you know, but at the same time, if you know that you're not going to have your starting midfield, you got to have more. Like, it just feels like we just kind of go into freestyle mode when we don't have our starting 11. We are such a different team with and without it. We look like we have all the answers when Xhaka and Partey are there and Tomiyasu, and we're just like out there in La La Land without it. And that's just strange. And it's like, we can look at the coaching and say we look so well coached sometimes, but we should still look well coached and ready to go. And especially at home against Burnley, with or without our best team. And so we also talked about why do we keep playing a single pivot if we've really never won with it and it's never been stable. There's questions around that Nketiah sub that just, why is that always the one that you go to? You know, and why ESR? Like, that didn't make sense. You probably could have taken off Lacazette. He was not going to score a goal at all. There's no chance. You take off somebody who's definitely not going to score for somebody who probably would because he has 9 goals this season. That's really strange. And Arteta just doesn't seem to, when we're in a game and we need to win it, if we're not losing it, he's not going to take risks. And I don't think that that's kind of what we need in an Arsenal manager. You know, he needs to step up. I'm giving him a 3. I thought, you know, I have a lot of questions around this, especially because we're talking about renewing the man's contract and he can't, I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? If we can only play with our starting 11 and look good, what are we doing on the training pitch? You know, what's happening? And so if this is your plan B, you need to coach it better because it's ass every time we do it. That plan B never works. So why do we keep putting it out there? Arteta was poor today. And he did a lot of crying and moaning and stuff about them time wasting when that's what we do. You just got it back from Burnley. We do that all the time. Stop focusing on what they're doing and the referees and focus on literally getting the players to play better on the pitch. And don't make stupid decisions like putting in Eddie Nketiah. Souls, what do you think about Arteta's performance today?
I'm going to give him a 4 just on the basis of substitutions or trying to change the game. I think he started the best he could in terms of, I don't think I had any qualms with the starting 11. I mean, he could have experimented maybe going Chambers or Ben White up there, but we don't really know how fit Chambers is for that to be an option. So I'll let him off just on the basis he may not be fully fit to start. But he definitely could have done more. He could have potentially gone with bringing in a Tavares just to bring in a bit more of an attacking outlet. The Nketiah for ESR just didn't make any sense to me. I just think, especially when ESR grew into the game and he started to look a little bit more threatening on the ball, it was just the wrong time to do it, if anything. So yeah, it has to be a 4 just because some of the in-game decision-making was like when he first came into Arsenal. It reminded me of when he first came into Arsenal where the decision-making and the substitutions were just so off. He didn't know how to manage the game. Whereas with recently, I do think he's been okay. But yeah, he needs to step up the risk-taking and he needs to know when he can do that and do that a little bit better just to help us win the game, take a few risks. I know it's a depleted bench and there's not really many options there other than Tavares, Nketiah, and then beyond that you've got like Chambers, who would have been a defensive change anyway. But yeah, I think he did the best he could. But there's a few decisions I'm against. But yeah, it's a 4 for me.
Ari?
I mean, just I'd say a 5, 4.55. I pretty much agree with what most of you said about the substitutions and whatnot, and not being daring enough. I kind of agree with the lineup if it's all we had. I think it's important that sometimes we don't know about player availability. We don't know about their fitness issues. So it's hard to draw too many conclusions. But when it comes to the substitutions, yeah, I would have liked him to be a little bit more bold, a little bit more adventurous to get the 3 points. In terms of him moaning about, Burnley's time wasting, in all honesty, I kind of like that. I think we need to do more of that. I think we need to show more gamesmanship. I think Burnley have had 1 red card in 3 years, or haven't had someone sent off in like the past 2.5 years. And that's because, their players also play the game of acting like the victims, of acting like everyone's diving. Sean Dyche, whenever a player of ours gets fouled, he's like, get up. He's rolling around.
And it's narrative driven as well, just to interject really quickly, that they're this hard-nosed old school team and everybody else is just soft. I saw Ben Mee, I think it was, do almost like a leg-breaking tackle last season, and they said that's just how it is at Burnley. They tackle you hard and stuff, and it was like, no, like he almost broke that man's leg. It's narrative,
Like they're trying to save British football by being hard, and and the rest have got to give them the benefit of the doubt. But so I don't mind Arteta kind of moaning about the time wasting, because these are all the things that these teams do, and annoyingly they get away with it. And if we talk about it, opposing fans will just say, "Oh, we're making excuses. We know what they're doing. Get on with it." And that's cool. That is true. But in the same respect, those moments, those tackles that aren't given, those fouls that aren't given yellow cards, the persistent time wasting, these are the things that contribute to us, not getting those 3 points. Of course, we need to make sure we do our job, but Burnley could have been down to 10 men today. There was repeated fouls from Peters, and even Aaron Lennon was giving away lots of fouls, and Nick Pope could have been booked in the first half of time wasting, and then he doesn't time waste anymore. So I don't mind Arteta moaning at those things, because something needs to, we need to try to do something to change. But in terms of what he did today, I'd probably say a 4.5 out of 10. Yeah, I mean, if you keep on trying the same thing and it doesn't work, you might want to try something new. So I think, when if Partey and Xhaka are both injured soon, I really hope we will not be trying the same 4-1-4-1. I really hope.
100%. So, I'm just going to read out these super chats as well. Goran Talius says the board promoted Arteta from head coach to manager, so he would be in charge of the transfers. He's equally culpable for the failure of the window. I think we'll have more conversations around this during the break. I'd like to do a mid-season review. We can kind of look back at the transfers, because now I'm kind of like, I want to kind of talk about, how we feel about the transfers now. Ben White, I love him so much, and I think he's a great signing. But was there an opportunity to use that money a little bit differently? I looked at Tammy Abraham, his numbers. I mean, we could have probably brought him in if we didn't bring in a center back, so it's one of those where have our choices kind of stunted our growth? Would we have been better off using the money differently? We'll talk about that during the break. The Truth Sets Free sent in a bunch of really nice super chats. And from what he's saying, he feels like he's been treated poorly in the chat box. You guys be nice to each other. Like, let's just be chill, He's a nice Spurs fan, True Sets Free says, I know that was frustrating. It's not an excuse for Arsenal, but Burnley should have had 10 men in the 37th minute. That was a joke call. Even the Burnley player was ready to walk off. I mean, we do know that the referee did a very good job of keeping all Burnley players on the pitch once he realized that he had given out, like they were on a mission to get sent off, and he stopped them from having to suffer the consequences of that. And that's unfortunate for us. Teams that struggle offensively do the same things and are predictable, like spreading it to the wingers and hoping they cut in every time and make something happen, nothing through the middle. That is true. We were just spamming crosses, and it was very frustrating.
Today
truth
felt
says,
like today felt like old Arsenal. You know when Arteta
yeah,
quotes like percentage of crossing,
yep,
to say that we should have had a goal because 78% of crosses were made or whatever it was. That's what today felt like.
it did feel
Just
like that. It did.
insanity.
Truth Sets Free also says smash the likes. You guys make sure that you guys smash the likes. So subscribe to the channel. There will be stuff on here throughout the break, but I am looking forward to not watching Arsenal play. I have to be honest. Truth Sets Free. This is one for all the haters out there. Big up yourselves. Haters are motivators. You are great motivators, and you don't even know it. I agree with that. We cannot, I guess, all say that the referee gets a 0, right? I mean, like, let's keep it 100. Like, he did a horrible job. Like, there wasn't anything like super like, but like, if that had been any of our players, we know they would have been off the pitch. Like, you know.
I feel like if I talk about it too much, you'll get deemed as making excuses. But just being in the ground and just ignoring the time wasting is just something which really, really annoys me. And yeah, because you're kind of saying to Burnley, right, we know you're at a disadvantage. We're going to help you get through this today. We're going to make it as easy for you today. We're going to, give you some fouls and give you some yellow cards, but not give you a red card, or just make sure, you can kick Saka a few times, but don't worry about it. Make sure it's not too nasty, but you can carry on kicking him and kicking him and kicking him. So in all honesty, the referees in this country are fucking hideous, absolutely terrible. I can't wait for robots to take over and just get rid of refs.
True.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you guys, we're going to end it there. Thank you guys so much for joining us for player ratings. We know it was, hopefully we made it a little bit more entertaining enough where you can just like laugh a little bit. I am feeling a lot better. That was a nice Arsenal therapy session. I will go on with the rest of my day. I have to say I have no appetite for football, but knowing that Chelsea have done a job on the Spurs and we have stayed in 6th, we actually went up a spot, makes me feel slightly better, so there you go. But we're still in the top 6 race because we're still in 6th. That's the race that I think that we're in. I have to be honest. But players need to come in, pronto. And yeah, so there you go. There's about 100 of you guys still here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.